The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Shadow boxes come with a lifetime guarantee.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Sunday morning to you. Good to have you with us. Anticipation is a phrase I use often. It means you anticipate something good happening, and then you're especially angry when you're disappointed. When you go up 17-0, that creates anticipation. When you lose, that's the disappointment and anger. We'll discuss yesterday's overtime loss, 31-24, Tennessee to Oklahoma. In today's show, we've got 5 VFLs here, 3 media members. It's a packed house. Let's get right into it. First segment of our show brought to you by Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. Phil has more than 38 years of experience marketing top-notch residential communities, lakefront golf communities, mountain homes, with more than $350 million in property sold. Think about that, $350 million in property sold. Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land is the team to trust when you want to market your home, or, of course, if you're looking for a home. All right. Want to welcome in the first wave of panelists we have right here. Bob Hodge, Jimmy Hyams, David Ligon, former Vol, Jacob Gillum, former Vol. David, back with us for the first time this year. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Sorry for the situation. And I'm going to
leave.
I'm going to start down this this first segment. I want to focus on what basically just different variations of a word, conservatism. I want to talk about where it reared its head, and it's not saying that's a bad thing. Tennessee's had, let's see, Neyland, Majors, Fulmer, all conservative, all won a lot of games. But let's start yesterday with the first drive for Tennessee. Let's start with my offensive lineman down there. You guys have it 4th and less than a yard, it looked like. Should have been less than a yard, bad spot. But 4th and a yard, Butch Jones decides to go to his analytics department, he says, and that means kick a field goal, don't come out of there with no points. Offensive lineman, do you agree or disagree with that decision? Would you have liked to take that ball and score a touchdown?
Look, the rational mind, yeah, points are important. But what it boils down to, as an offensive lineman, we always have the mentality, if it's 4th and a yard, 4th and short, we're going to get that. We have the faith in our ability to push the pile just enough to where we have a great running back who's going to make that jump or cram it in there, and we'll get it. I mean, all that has to happen is the ball has to break the plane. There's never been a situation in my career when I was playing when it was 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1, whatever the situation, we'll get it and we'll go for it. And now you've got 6 instead of 3.
Jacob, your thoughts?
I mean, I completely agree. I really think that having played offensive line, especially in Coach Jones' system, we have the plays where we can get in there and score from 4th and short. And it's just all about having faith in your offensive line. And I know all those guys out there, they all had faith in themselves to go for it on 4th and 1. And I know in a heartbeat they were telling Coach to go for it. So it's just about a pride in your performance and a pride in who you are as an O-lineman. You might not get on 3rd and short, but when the ball's on the line on 4th down, you're going to get it.
Guys, I must say I wasn't surprised when they kicked the field goal, because I think, and this is, you can talk about that first drive and that decision, or you can talk about the bigger picture, which is I think people need to stop wondering whether or not Butch Jones is going to play things conservatively. I think 9 times out of 10 he's going to. You look back to the South Carolina upset in 2013, you knock off a number 10 team, very conservative, this same type of style, and it got you the win. I think at this point it's clear that he is of the same vein of Philip Fulmer and Johnny Majors. As I said, you can win a lot of games doing that. But he's clearly a conservative coach. Were you guys surprised with the decision early on or not?
I'm going to go with mildly surprised, because the ball was clearly inside the 1 yard line.
About 6 inches away.
Yeah, you're talking about something like this, and so I was mildly surprised, given the situation that if you didn't make it, okay, now you've got Oklahoma running their offense out of their own end zone,
99 yards, yeah.
So I was mildly surprised. I wasn't angry about it. I thought, okay, you did get points, you're ahead in the ball game, but just on a scale of 1 to 10, my surprise wasn't huge.
Jimmy.
I'm kind of in Bob's camp. I thought when you got that short to go, you would go ahead and try to punch it in against Oklahoma. What was interesting is that Butch Jones said that he wanted to get points because he thought the game would play out as a low-scoring game. I didn't think that. So I'm thinking you better get a touchdown. I had both teams scoring in the 30s. So that my feeling was you got to go for this and send a message. I'm not so sure I'd come back and say, okay, that was the most critical call of the game, which some of our callers this morning said, because you're up 17-0. There are a whole lot of plays.
If Medley hits
after
his
that.
field goal,
Yeah, so and if you get
win.
a 3-score differential with Oklahoma after that, you're gonna win it. But I would have gone for it, and I think that yes, that does show the conservatism. Butch Jones said he felt like he needed to try to get some points on the board to keep momentum.
I think when you look at, you and I talked last night after the game. If you're making that call in the third quarter and you've not been able to move the line at all, your offensive line's looking like it did last year, then I might kick the field goal. But you had just gone 11 plays, 50 yards. You'd moved it pretty well.
Yeah.
So at that time, if you were going to go for it, that would have been the perfect
And you've got
spot.
a big running back who runs with power.
Yep.
And that would have factored into it, too.
And they certainly went with Hurd a lot more last night than they did Kamara. And you wonder, I know there were a lot of people wondering where was Kamara. Do you think they were looking at it and saying, Hurd is our heart guy, Hurd is our power guy. Let's keep it in the hands of our big guy instead of splitting reps. Do you think that was the issue? Any ideas on why Kamara just kind of disappeared?
Yeah, at 4 carries, I wondered if he got hurt. But he's a guy later in the game when you're trying to run off the clock. You chew some of that up. I think he's got the speed to get to the edge.
Yes.
Hurd has shown he can do it too, but Kamara, look, the guy's he's a physical specimen as well. I think he can run between the tackles if need be, but he can definitely get the edge for you if it's not they're putting 8 or 9 in the box and you're not going to get it between the tackles. Well, get a leverage advantage and put him outside and see if he can turn up the field for a couple yards.
Let me ask one for Jacob here. You know the playbook for the most part. I mean, Mike DeBoer's brought some new stuff in there. We talked last week, I believe, in our overtime segment online about Tennessee looking very vanilla against Bowling Green. Didn't show a lot. Did Tennessee go too conservative in the second half?
In the second half, what Oklahoma started to do is they dropped 8 guys in the box and they dared us to throw the ball. They manned up our receivers and dared them to get open. So when you got 8 guys in the box, there's not a whole lot of run plays you can call that are going to get consistent yards. So I think that we tried our best to open up our playbook, but given 8 in the box, it was really hard for us to run a lot.
Let me show some numbers here. And keep in mind, this is from ESPN's play-by-play numbers at about 3:30 in the morning. Those numbers usually change as they correct their box scores. But in the first half, it kind of speaks to what Jacob just said. First half, 25 runs, 14 passes. Second half, you actually passed more than you ran the ball, according to ESPN, as of 3:30 in the morning. That's not counting overtime. That's not counting kneel downs. So you did pass a little bit more in the second half. But let's take a look at the last 2 full drives. All right, 1st and 10 at the Oklahoma 29. You have the fumble. You lose 12 yards. Hurd falls on it because Oklahoma kicks it around and can't fall on it. 2nd down, 22. Dobbs runs for a yard. 3rd and 21, obvious passing situation, incomplete, punt. Oklahoma goes down, scores their first touchdown. Next drive, you run Hurd for nothing. Box score says Hurd for 1. I thought it was Hurd for nothing. Illegal procedure moves them back. Now you're 3rd and long again. Pass to Smith for 8. Punt. Did they get too conservative in the end, Jimmy Himes?
Yes, I think they did. Now, they had trouble, as Jacobs pointed out, they had trouble blocking Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was running blitzes, not just against the pass, but the run. And the run blitz was stuffing Tennessee. And then, as Kyler Kervison said, they were running blitzes, they were running stems, they were running people across the line. And he said that it caused problems for the offensive line blocking. Maybe that led to some of the conservatism a little bit. But I thought Tennessee did pull it to the vest a little bit too close.
Bob?
I thought they got a little bit conservative, but I'm going to disagree with Jimmy just slightly because I think they got conservative because they weren't executing. Dobbs wasn't throwing the ball very well. The receivers were not getting open. So really you were kind of boxed in on what you could do because receivers, they went to the man coverage and they couldn't shake anybody. And Dobbs was not doing a good job before he was placing the ball. So I think maybe you got a little conservative out of you. You had to. You just didn't have any.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that you had to.
Yeah.
I just think you did.
You also had Jalen Hurd, who was. They kept going back to Hurd. He was getting 1 or 2 or 3 yards when there was nothing there. So maybe that's another reason they kept Hurd in there. He was at least getting something where there was nothing because multiple times he was able to carry a couple of guys on his back.
So if there'd been nothing down at the goal line on that first possession,
There you
he'd have got that yard.
There you go. But here I will say this: a lot of people after every loss, you always hear, "Well, it's play selection." That's the easiest thing in the world
Yeah.
because. But regardless of what the play call is, you still got to have some execution. And as these guys can attest, I mean, some of those same calls that didn't work in the second half were working just fine in the first half. So, yes, they got a little conservative, I thought, but I don't think you sit there and throw all the blame goes on play selection. When we come back, by the way, let me tell you this. You see right there's my Twitter handle, Twitter name. Tweet us your questions, and our VFLs will answer those later in today's show and in our overtime segment later today. Coming up next, who gets the blame for yesterday's loss? The defense blew the lead, but the offense didn't help them. We'll talk about that. Come on back on the Sports Source.